Hi viewers, welcome to another Sunday here on Pagan Perspective. I'm your host Austin, or SLC Witchboy, and this week we're discussing divination. Divination is actually a pretty big part of my practice. I am very fascinated with the different forms of divination and different traditions associated with those forms. Personally, I'm more drawn to tarot use. It's just kind of what I picked up first and what I've always been more comfortable with. Since a lot of people like to know what kind of decks people use, I use sort of a traditional Rider-Waite deck, kind of what you would think of when you think of a tarot deck, very traditional, typical artwork. Sorry, the lights are kind of weird. It's the first sunny day we've had in a long time, so I have all the windows open. So, just very traditional artwork, nothing too fancy. Although I did take it and I personalized the edges and gilded them. And you can't really see the gilding, but I gilded all the edges with silver. And other than that, I've dabbled a bit in runes, although I'm not an expert or even proficient in any way. That's kind of my next experience in divination, is to get a little more comfortable with the runes. Another tool that I will use from time to time, although not nearly as often as my tarot deck, is a pendulum. And that's my pendulum there. I have a malachite. Actually, that one was given to me by Arlo. Kind of what I'm interested in is I know a lot of you have probably heard, as I have, a lot of these sort of traditions or superstitions, or all these things that go along with divination tools, especially the tarot deck and all of that. The things like, okay, well, they should be a gift, or you can't buy them for yourself, or you can't read for yourself, or you shouldn't do so many more than X amount of readings a day, or whatever it may be. And I was wondering, have you heard those? What have you heard? And do you subscribe to any of those? Do you insist on sleeping with your tarot deck, or all the things that you hear? And I personally, I don't necessarily subscribe to them, but I'm not going to think less of someone who does, because I think a lot of them come from a place of truth, as many superstitions or wives' tales or things started as a piece of truth in the beginning, and now have become something different. For example, this sort of idea that all tarot decks should be given as gifts and that you can't use one that you purchased yourself. Well, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that choosing one for yourself is important, especially nowadays. If you don't have pagan friends, or if you don't have someone who knows, how are you going to get given a tarot deck? Also, I think that tarot decks are a very personal thing. I think that at least I, personally need to hold the tarot deck, look at the artwork. I like to read the artist's intent, because even though, a lot of you may say, okay, well, I have this tarot deck and it's set up this way and I read these things off these certain cards, I think it is also helpful to read what the artist's intention was for the cards. Especially on the specialized decks, you have the emotional decks, and you have the color decks and fairy decks, and all of these myriad of different tarot styles. I think it's important to know something about what the person was trying to achieve when they created them. Also, I think that with this idea of giving as a gift, I think there is a lot to that. I think if someone honestly, between two close friends, thought about the person and cared about the person and cared enough to spend the time to find a really great deck or tool, or anything of that nature, to give as a gift, I think that it innately comes with those positive vibrations and those feelings that person has for you. So in this instance, I think that it started as sort of something that was done, or something, maybe those kind of things were gifted at one point, and it was a good thing, and they do have good vibrations, and over time it's become this, oh, you can't use a deck unless it's been bought for you as a gift. But yeah, so I'm interested to know what kind of what kind of superstitions you've heard about divination tools. Also, are there any times of the year that you consider to be prime times for divination? I know traditionally a lot of people think of Samhain and that time, October 31st to the November 1st, as being a very open time for divination. I personally do as well. And also, full moons are great, all of this, but at the same time, I don't necessarily restrict myself to only those times. So, what are your feelings on that? Do you recognize sort of prime times or sweet spots for divination? And if you do you limit your divination to those times, or are you reading whenever you need to? Also, I'll mention this along with divination, although technically I don't think it falls under the divination context, but it is using divination tools. I like to do a lot of tarot spells and use a lot of tarot cards within my spell work. For example, if I were doing something very simple, I would choose an appropriate candle, an appropriate tarot card, or a few, depending on what the correspondences were, as well as the meanings, or even if I just got the sort of intuitive feeling that a certain card was appropriate. And I might put the candle over the card and and create my spell work from there. Maybe incorporate a stone or two. I found that to be specifically helpful when doing long term spells, something that I'm going to leave out on my altar and burn the candle through a period of time. But anyway, so that's kind of how I use my divination tools, what I use, and some thoughts about that. Leave comments down below. Let me know what you're thinking. And I will see you all next Sunday. Until then, bye.